Agree, everyone, it's such a blessing to be with you today as we dive deep into a timeless truth that can transform your financial life forever. I want you to lean in because what you're about to hear is not just words. It's a powerful revelation that has changed the course of many lives. Psalm 112 is a divine blueprint for attracting God's financial overflow. It reveals the spiritual principles behind lasting prosperity, principles rooted in righteousness, generosity, integrity, and unwavering faith. This psalm isn't about luck or quick fixes. It's about aligning your life with God's eternal ways so that wealth flows steadily into your home and your purpose. The blessings described here aren't temporary. They endure, bringing not only money but peace, influence, and favor in every area of your life. So, if you're ready to unlock the door to God's financial overflow and experience the kind of prosperity that stands the test of time, stay with me. And if this message blesses your heart, don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this journey together toward a life of abundance and divine favor. Praise the Lord. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who delights greatly in his commandments. Psalm 112. 1. There is a mysterious magnetism woven into the soul of those who revere God. The kind of reverence that doesn't just acknowledge God on Sunday mornings, but places him at the center of daily decision-making. Psalm 112 opens with a secret. Blessing is not random, it is attracted. And what draws it? A life rooted in the fear of the Lord. In Scripture, fear of the Lord doesn't mean terror or dread. It means deep awe, honor, and submission to divine authority. This fear births wisdom, and wisdom births order. When a person fears God, their life comes into alignment with divine principles, and alignment attracts overflow. This is why Psalm 112 begins with a celebration. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. You must understand something foundational. Financial overflow is not magic, it is manifestation, the outcome of alignment with God's system. God is not partial, he is principled. Psalm 112 reveals a blueprint that, when followed, activates divine wealth, not just for personal consumption but for generational transformation. When a person fears God, something shifts in the atmosphere of their life. Honor becomes the compass, integrity becomes the standard, obedience becomes the pathway. The fear of the Lord causes a person to resist shortcuts, refuse shady deals, and reject manipulation for gain. That type of heart invites the confidence of heaven. Let me share a story. A young businessman named Joseph left a high-paying but unethical job because his boss asked him to falsify records. He had rent due, bills piling up, but he chose to fear God more than he feared lack. 2 months later, he was hired by a multinational company looking for people of character to lead their expansion project. His salary tripled, and not only did he prosper, his family was secured. Why? Because he chose reverence over convenience. This is not rare, it is repeatable. Wherever a man or woman chooses to place God above gain, the hand of heaven moves. Psalm 112 says, Blessed man delights greatly in his commandments. This is another key, delight, not duty. God is not impressed by people who obey him while resenting him. He is moved by those who love his word, who find joy in doing right, who take pleasure in walking in his ways. When your heart delights in righteousness, your hands will not lack provision, because God can trust a heart that honors him with resources beyond measure. This is why some people can give generously and still never run out. They don't operate by the rules of the world. They walk by the divine economy. Their lives are rooted in Psalm 112:1. Research has shown that individuals who live by spiritual principles, especially integrity, have better financial stability long term. The University of Notre Dame conducted a study on generosity and long-term financial well-being. It found that those who consistently gave, served others, and lived by biblical ethics had higher financial satisfaction and were less likely to experience financial crisis, even when their income levels were modest. This echoes what the Word has been saying all along. A righteous life attracts financial peace. Psalm 112 sets the tone with a man who both fears and delights. These are internal postures. They are heart conditions. Financial overflow begins not in the bank account, but in the heart. Many people pray for increase, but ignore the principles that attract it. It's not about hustle. It's about honor. God does not bless what is impressive. He blesses what is aligned. You don't need to impress God to receive his financial overflow. You need to honor him. Think of the fear of the Lord as fertile soil. Every seed you plant, whether in tithing, integrity, generosity, or vision, will grow differently in that soil than it would in the soil of selfish ambition. The fear of the Lord cultivates an environment where financial miracles make sense, where closed doors open, where little becomes much, where what you lost is restored with interest. Psalm 112. One is not just the opening of a psalm, it's the foundation of a financial covenant. If you want God's overflow, don't chase wealth. Chase reverence. Set your heart on fearing him and delighting in his truth. When you do, you won't have to look for blessing. Blessing will look for you. His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Psalm 112, 2. When we talk about God's financial overflow, it's essential to understand it's never just about personal gain. God's blessings are designed to multiply beyond the individual, to impact families, communities, and generations to come. Psalm 112, 2 declares a powerful truth. Obedience and righteousness don't only benefit you, they build a legacy. In our modern culture, it's easy to live with a me-first mentality, focusing only on what we can get right now. But the Word teaches us something different. True overflow happens when your life produces fruit that lasts beyond your lifespan. God's favor stretches across time, blessing the descendants of those who honor him. When a person lives uprightly, obeying God's commandments, they open the door not only to personal financial blessing, but to generational wealth and influence. This is not just about money. It's about stability, opportunity, and provision for those who come after you. Let me illustrate with a real-life example. Consider the story of the late Robert Smith, a self-made billionaire who grew up in modest circumstances. He often credited his financial success not only to hard work and innovation, but to the values instilled by his parents. His parents taught him the importance of integrity, education, and faith. That legacy empowered him to build wealth that impacted not just his own life, but also the lives of his children, community, and philanthropic causes. This is the very essence of Psalm 112, 2. The blessing of the upright transcends one life. It strengthens whole generations. When you honor God, you create a foundation that your children and grandchildren can stand on, preventing the cycle of poverty and struggle. Scientific research supports this concept. Studies on intergenerational wealth show that families who pass on values of discipline, education, and ethical behavior tend to maintain or increase their wealth over generations. Conversely, families without these foundations often face repeated financial hardship. From a spiritual perspective, this is the fruit of obedience. The mighty descendants are not just the result of inherited money, but the legacy of a life aligned with God's principles. It's the legacy of honesty in business, faithfulness in relationships, generosity, and steadfastness in trials. This idea also brings to light a challenge and responsibility for us. Are we living in a way that honors God so that our children and grandchildren inherit more than just material wealth? Will they inherit values that empower them to steward God's blessings well? Psalm 112 reminds us that financial overflow is not selfish accumulation. It is purposeful multiplication. The righteous person's blessing is a seed that grows into a tree with deep roots and wide branches. It is the kind of blessing that shelters and feeds many. Imagine the difference in the world if more people embraced this truth. Instead of short-sighted wealth that disappears with a generation, there would be flourishing communities, thriving families, and legacies that honor God's name. Consider your own life. What legacy are you building? Are you planting seeds of obedience and faithfulness that will grow into blessings for those who come after you? If not, Psalm 112:2 calls you to change course. The overflow you desire begins with the vision to bless beyond yourself. It is also important to understand that this generational blessing requires intentional action. You must teach your children the value of fearing God, loving His commandments, and managing resources with wisdom. You must show them by example how to live uprightly, even when it's hard. Many financial advisors now emphasize the importance of legacy planning, not just in terms of wills and assets, but in imparting values and wisdom. They understand that wealth without wisdom quickly dissipates. Psalm 112 says that the generation of the upright will be blessed, meaning it is righteousness, not just riches, that ensures lasting prosperity. When you align your life with God's principles, you tap into a divine flow that transcends the natural limitations of your own lifespan. You create a spiritual and financial inheritance that empowers those who follow. This truth is not just comforting, it is empowering. You do not have to wait for generational blessings to come to pass over centuries. You can start now by living a life of obedience, integrity, and faith. Your children, your family, and your community are watching. Your choices today will either open the floodgates of blessing or close them. You have the power to set in motion a cycle of divine overflow that lasts for generations. In conclusion, Psalm 112:2 is a clarion call to think beyond immediate blessings and embrace the eternal impact of obedience. Your faithfulness today is the foundation for the financial overflow that blesses many tomorrows. Wealth and riches are in His house, and His righteousness endures forever. Psalm 112:3, when we talk about God's financial overflow, many think in terms of quick fixes or fleeting luck. But this verse reveals something far deeper, a lasting, secure prosperity rooted in righteousness. It is not just a momentary increase. It is wealth that stays, wealth that is connected to a life pleasing to God. Psalm 112:3 makes a powerful declaration. Wealth and riches are in the house of the righteous. Notice the word house. This implies not just an individual, but a household, a family, a foundation. The overflow God promises is not meant for just one person, but for a whole environment, a sphere of influence. But it's not just about accumulation. The verse also says His righteousness endures forever. What this means is that the wealth is intertwined with righteousness. It is sustainable because it is founded on God's eternal principles, not on human schemes. Think about the last time you heard about someone who made it financially, only to lose everything due to dishonesty, greed, or poor choices. Sadly, there are many such stories. The difference between fleeting wealth and enduring riches is righteousness. The psalmist tells us the righteous person's wealth is secure because it is built on obedience, truth, and integrity. This teaches us that God's financial overflow is not a random blessing or a windfall for the lucky. It is a reward for living rightly, and this righteousness is not just outward behavior but a heart condition, a commitment to God's ways that influences every decision. Let me share a real life story. There was a business owner named Sarah who ran a small but growing company. Unlike many in her industry, she refused to cut corners or exploit her workers, even when competitors did. She paid her employees fairly, invested in their growth, and conducted her business honestly. Over time, Sarah's business flourished. She gained loyal clients, avoided legal troubles, and grew steady profits. Sarah's wealth was not just money in the bank, it was a thriving, sustainable legacy built on righteousness. This reflects what Psalm 112:3 says, "Wealth and riches belong to those whose lives are upright before God." Scientific studies show that ethical business practices often lead to better long-term financial outcomes. Companies with high ethical standards tend to have stronger customer loyalty, lower employee turnover, and better reputations, factors that contribute to sustained profitability. But the verse goes further. The righteousness that produces this wealth endures forever. This is key. In the financial world, many riches are temporary. Markets crash, fortunes disappear, but the overflow God gives those who honor him is lasting. It withstands the tests of time and trouble because it is anchored in eternal truth. It's also worth noting the spiritual dimension of his house. The overflow of the righteous is not only material, but also spiritual and relational. Their homes are places of peace, influence, and blessing. Their families experience God's provision and protection because the foundation is righteousness. Many people desire wealth but neglect the foundation. They focus on the money but forget the heart. Psalm 112:3 teaches us that wealth without righteousness is unstable, but righteousness leads to a secure house filled with riches. This principle also reminds us to steward what God entrusts wisely. The righteous don't hoard wealth selfishly. They manage it responsibly, recognizing it as a gift and a tool to bless others. The psalmist's words encourage us to pursue righteousness, not as a means to an end, but as the way that leads to genuine, sustainable overflow. When you do this, wealth becomes more than numbers. It becomes a blessing that lasts, impacting your life, your family, and your community for generations. Let's reflect on this truth deeply. God's financial overflow comes to those who live uprightly. It is not accidental, it is purposeful. It is not fleeting, it is enduring. In closing, Psalm 112:3 calls us to build our house on the rock of righteousness. When we align ourselves with God's principles, our financial blessings become a testament to his faithfulness, riches that not only enrich our bank accounts, but also enrich our souls and the lives around us. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. Psalm 112, for life's journey is unpredictable. At times, darkness envelops us. Financial crises, unexpected loss, economic downturns, and personal hardships can make our path uncertain and fraught with anxiety. Yet, Psalm 112:4 offers a powerful promise. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright. This light represents God's financial favor breaking through the shadows, shining hope and provision in the bleakest moments. This is not mere optimism or wishful thinking. It is a divine guarantee that righteousness is a beacon that attracts God's intervention in times of need. The key lies in the character of the person, the upright, gracious, compassionate, and righteous, those who live in alignment with God's heart. To be upright means to be morally straight, honest, and aligned with God's standards, even when circumstances tempt you to compromise. To be gracious and compassionate means to respond to others with kindness and generosity, reflecting God's own nature. Financial overflow in dark times doesn't come to those who manipulate or exploit, but to those who maintain integrity and extend grace. This verse speaks to the reality that God's blessings are often most visible and powerful, not when everything is easy, but when life is difficult. Think of the story of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before her success, she faced profound hardship, single motherhood, poverty, and rejection by multiple publishers. Yet she persevered with integrity and compassion, never resorting to deceit or shortcuts. Her light eventually dawned. Today, she is one of the most financially successful authors in history. Her story echoes the promise of Psalm 112, for light dawns even in darkness for the upright. Psychologists studying resilience note that people who maintain positive values and kindness in hardship tend to recover faster and even thrive. This resilience correlates with opportunities and favor, including financial breakthroughs. It's also important to note that the light in this verse is not only about financial provision, but also about peace, clarity, and direction. In dark seasons, it's easy to panic or make poor decisions. But God's light guides the upright to wise choices that lead to restoration and overflow. Financial crises can sometimes be the greatest opportunities for God to reveal His favor. When you choose faithfulness over fear, generosity over greed, and righteousness over expedience, you position yourself to receive breakthrough. Imagine a farmer during a drought. The land is dry and lifeless, but when the rains come, those who prepared and remained faithful see their fields flourish beyond expectation. Likewise, the upright who stay true to God's ways during financial drought will see unexpected provision. This principle is echoed in business studies where companies that maintain ethical standards and invest in social responsibility during recessions often emerge stronger and more profitable afterward. Their reputation and trustworthiness become their light in dark economic times. The message here is clear. Darkness is not the absence of God's favor. It is the backdrop against which His light shines brightest for those who walk in uprightness and compassion. Your financial challenges are not the end. They are the setting where God's promise can be demonstrated in full power. When you remain righteous, gracious, and compassionate, you invite the dawn of light, a new season of financial favor. This promise encourages us not to shrink back or compromise our values in tough times, but to hold fast, knowing that God's light is coming. It is a light that will not only illuminate your path, but also bring financial overflow that surprises and sustains you. Psalm 112:4 invites us to trust God even when the world is dark and uncertain. It assures us that our righteousness will draw divine favor that pierces through shadows and brings breakthrough. In practical terms, this means continuing to act with integrity, giving generously, and treating others with kindness, especially when it's hardest. This posture positions you to receive the light God promises. Financial overflow is more than a paycheck or a bonus. It is a divine intervention that brings stability and hope when you need it most. It is the dawn breaking after the longest night. So today, if you find yourself in financial darkness, hear this promise. God's light is rising for you. Remain upright, be gracious, show compassion, and watch as His favor floods your life with abundance, turning your darkest season into your greatest testimony. Good will come to those who are generous and lend freely, who conduct their affairs with justice. Psalm 112:5, when we talk about God's financial overflow, integrity is the unshakable foundation beneath every blessing. Psalm 112:5 highlights this by connecting generosity and justice with the arrival of good things. This verse teaches that true prosperity is inseparable from how we handle our relationships and resources with fairness and a generous spirit. In today's world, many chase success with questionable ethics, cutting corners, exploiting others, or manipulating systems. But no matter the temporary gains, these methods lack the strength to sustain true overflow. The psalmist shows us that God's favor rests on those who are just and generous, and these qualities produce lasting benefits. Generosity here is not just about giving money. It's about a lifestyle of openness, freely sharing what God has entrusted to you without selfish hesitation. When you lend freely, you demonstrate trust in God's provision and a heart aligned with His compassion. Justice means conducting your affairs with fairness and honesty. It means refusing to cheat, deceive, or take advantage of others. Business people who operate justly build reputations of trustworthiness and attract God's blessing. Consider the example of a businessman named Michael, who owned a small manufacturing company. Despite pressures to cut costs by compromising quality or delaying payments to suppliers, Michael chose to maintain fairness and prompt payment. Over time, his integrity earned him loyal customers, reliable partners, and steady growth. He experienced financial overflow not because he chased profit recklessly, but because he conducted his affairs with justice. Studies in business ethics reinforce this truth. Companies known for fairness and generosity often outperform competitors in the long run. Customers and employees prefer to engage with organizations they trust, which translates into sustainable success. Moreover, generosity opens the door for God's supernatural blessing. The Bible teaches that God loves a cheerful giver, and when you give freely, you invite divine multiplication. This is not about obligation or manipulation, but about responding to God's blessings with an open heart. The combination of generosity and justice creates a powerful testimony. It reflects God's own character, who is both just and merciful. When you emulate these attributes, you align yourself with the source of all overflow.